Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we have Andrew from Illuvium. He's recently got a promotion, so I'll let him talk to you about what he's doing at Illuvium and that sort of stuff. But this one's going to be more of a get to know Andrew, talk about the macro side of the play to earn space in general and get his insights because he has some fantastic insights. So Andrew, welcome. Give us a bit about yourself and your background in marketing and stuff like that.
You got it. Yeah, so I'm now head of marketing for Illuvium. So I'm running all of our marketing efforts across the board. And so my background, just a quick overview. I don't want to bore everybody, but I've been doing this whole YouTuber and streamer thing for the last 12 years. I quit my full-time job in 2010 to become one of the first Twitch partners and first Twitch live streamers doing it full-time. And I never looked back. And I dedicated my career over the last decade to helping people transition out of their, let's say, normal jobs into creating gaming content and video content on the internet for a living. And so I ended up co-founding it's TGN. It became the largest gaming video network of all time. And we ended up getting acquired by, it's now a publicly traded company in Canada, Broadband TV. And we had about 30,000 gaming YouTubers like yourself in our network, getting billions of views per month. And I produced about 10,000 gaming videos in-house that got billions of views for Blizzard Entertainment, for ourselves, for the ESL. We did our own League of Legends tournaments, the whole nine. My entire life for the last 10 years has been dedicated to creating gaming content, online video, live streaming, social media across every vertical you could imagine. And so over the last year, through that kind of time, I've been noticing some of the clients that I've worked with starting to transition over to crypto, starting to look at and dabble with play to earn gaming, and now play and earn gaming is the term we're using. And so I started investigating, and this YouTuber came up on my feed. His name was Vulcan maybe. And I started watching some of this guy's videos about Illuvium, and I said, oh shit. This game is so much better than all the other ones I've been testing, like Axie and all these like single A and double A games. Maybe there's something here. So then I ended up chugging about 100 Illuvium videos. Illuvium posted the the CMO position, the head of marketing position. I applied for it. They ended up making a custom position for me to run video and influencer stuff for Illuvium because that's my background. And that's how I got into this space. So actually the very first piece of content, the very first point that I discovered Illuvium was actually your videos. And I want to thank you for making great videos. It was actually you doing a Kieran interview like this. And that led me to becoming a core contributor with Illuvium. And now I'm running marketing for this project. And it's really exciting. And it's the perfect combination of my best skills, let's say, and also my top interests. The things I'm most interested in are crypto, gaming, and online content and social media. And now I literally do only that all day long, 14 hours a day for a living. And that's awesome. So here I am.
100%. And I just wanted to say, like, because people like in the Illuvium community might not realize it, but like even when you just came on before you were head of marketing, like you said, they made that custom influencer position. And I know like from all the influencers that I speak to who have had interactions with you, it's been really great. And I think that's something that can't get underestimated in the Illuvium space. And that's why I really like what Illuvium's doing, because they're not afraid to, for instance, make a position and pay someone for that position in the first place, which is actually going to help their natural content creators, which makes everything that basically represents them look better, because often content is a way for people to get into an ecosystem. And if you can get the people making content already to improve, one, it increases your relationship with them, and two, it increases just the representation of your brand. So I think that was like a really big thing. I remember our first chat that we had, and you just like literally anything you need, let me know, any advice, and you can help out. So I just wanted to say that firstly, because that's just been the theme for me with Illuvium the whole way along. It's like they're willing to do stuff that you probably wouldn't see traditional companies doing. So I wanted to thank you for all the help behind the scenes that you do give all the content creators as well. And I'm sure most, if not all of them, would share that sentiment. But
thank you so much. I appreciate that. I just want to add a note there to that. So Not only is it like what I love to do, but it's just a really smart business strategy in this space.
Yes.
So legacy gaming companies view influencers as the number of views or clicks or conversions that they can generate for your game. And it's a dollar amount in and then conversions out the other side, transaction relationship. Look at Raid Shadow Legends or other examples out there of how they handle influencers. They're like, how much money can I pay you to talk about our game? And how many new players will that generate for me? And how profitable is that? The way that we're approaching influencer marketing and working with folks like you is that this is our primary way of marketing Illuvium. And so the philosophy that I've kind of been putting together over time is a philosophy of decentralized marketing. So instead of entirely relying on centralized entities like Facebook ads, Google ads, paid spots on the Apple App Store, and going through these centralized locations that people normally go through or legacy gaming companies normally go through to get the word out there about their titles, instead of giving all my money to Zuckerberg with marketing budget, I'd rather disperse that same amount of money to 100 influencers across the world in a decentralized way and have them talking about Illuvium in English, Arabic, Spanish, in Portuguese, in German. I'm not just naming random languages. We're already putting
Yeah.
together communities in all of these areas and doing paid sponsored content in these areas to build a global decentralized influencer community around Illuvium. That's going to make Illuvium in our community and our engagement and our marketing much stronger than if we took that same dollar amount and just put it in the middle of a Facebook ad campaign and just lit it on fire and hope that some conversions happen. And so Kieran and I are very much on the same page with influencers. Like in the stack of things we could be doing to market and build Illuvium, influencers are at the top of the pyramid. And it's really important for us to double down on that. And I think that really fits the decentralized ethos of Illuvium overall. It's a power to the people project. It's revenue distribution to the people project. It's owned by the people. And so I think the marketing should follow suit.
100%. That's a really interesting take on it. And the interesting thing for me was like relationships is the big thing. Cause like for me, like on this channel, especially because it's crypto, there's a lot of scams, all that. Like I don't take any sponsorships and I literally only cover things once I make relationships with, people behind the scenes and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, now I trust them. I believe in that. Now I'll push it. Whereas like in the space, especially because there's so much bad out there at the same time. If you're just paying for a straight sponsorship, it almost looks not as natural to people looking at it anyway. So I definitely agree with that sentiment.
Totally. Like just before this call, minutes ago, you said something like, what did you want? You needed something in your setup for your studio or something.
I was just, I was having trouble with my camera linking to OBS and stuff.
Yeah. So the way that I think about supporting you is like, okay, well, your lens right now, for example, your shot is too close. Your camera is too close to your face. We were talking about. I'm like, well, why doesn't Illuvium buy you a new lens? Like, I want to help you grow your business and help you make your content better. If I help you build out your studio and help support that, that's different than, hey, Vulcan, man, let me give you like $5,000 real quick to shout out this land sale and shill some ILV. Like, those are two very different things.
Yeah.
So I view working with influencers, the questions I ask are, where are you trying to go with your media business? And what can I do to help you expand your media business? If that's helping them buy equipment, if that's helping them get new graphics, if that's helping them with their strategy, whatever it is, that's my objective when working with influencers, because I want them to be able to make content from a living from home and have that freedom in their life for the next decade. Yep. Because I think the 2020s are the decade of decentralization and crypto. And so if you can build a solid media business today as an influencer in this crypto space, man, you're set for at least 10 years.
100%. And once again, like I said, and it's that attitude with a bunch of the other guys I know behind the scenes, and they really do appreciate it. But you did touch on sort of coming across to Illuvium, but you mentioned how big your previous business was. What made you, like, what was the one key thing that made you say, okay, I have to go to Illuvium? You sort of touched on it, but it's like, was there like that light bulb moment where you're like, this is just like, this is where the future is and that's what I have to be?
Yep, there was that light bulb moment. Yeah. So the previous light bulb moment I had was when I was working at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. It's like the premier rich people hotel. And we were doing big charity events, and I was the technical director, and they were running all these multi-million-dollar events and doing the audio video. And I thought that that was the pinnacle of audio and video and communications technology at the time. Then I went on this thing called YouTube. Then I saw Husky StarCraft. Maybe I'm dating myself, but he was shoutcasting a StarCraft game. So there was a guy in his bedroom playing a video game, just talking over the footage, and he got 100,000 views on YouTube just doing that. And as soon as I saw that, the light bulb went off for me, and I said, oh my God, what I'm doing right now in this ballroom, in this physical hotel with these old, rich, crusty people is the past. This is old technology. This is legacy tech. I'm actually a part of the past. So I immediately started producing my own YouTube videos, hundreds of them, until I then was a caster for the ESL. And then I became a caster for StarCraft Go 4 SC2 tournament series. Just working at night at 2 a.m. every night after work, every single day for 2 years. And then I was able to transition into social media and video. That was my light bulb moment, realizing that what I'm currently doing is the past.
Yep.
I then had that light bulb moment last year when I'm on calls with people as a part of my consulting business, helping them set up their Zoom, helping them improve their YouTube analytics and their what they're doing on social media, and then seeing the crypto space completely change the game and completely change all of these business models. I was starting to realize that all my clients I was working with that are trying to grow on Twitch, grow on YouTube, grow on Facebook, they were completely subservient to a centralized entity and these algorithms that these centralized entities created for their entire well-being and their entire business. And there was this entire decentralized space that was taking all of the power away from these centralized social media entities and kind of dematerializing them in real time by the trillions of dollars. And so then there was this lightning bolt moment that hit me where I realized anyone that is building something centralized on the internet, you are building legacy technology. It just hit me all of a sudden. So then once I realized that, I said, okay, well, in the gaming industry, in the space I'm interested in, what is the premier project? What is the premier strongest horse in the race with decentralized gaming?
And then
I researched
and then
about
Axie
100
wouldn't have
projects.
you on, and then you were screwed.
Yeah, and I replied to Axie. I hadn't applied to a job in 15 years.
Jeez.
I never had to apply to a job. I just got recruited. But this was the first job I applied for in 15 years, was applying to join Illuvium. Because to me, it looked so far ahead in this market of decentralized media and entertainment, years ahead of any competitor that's even announced the possibility that they will make a AAA game. That this was very clearly the strongest horse. And I saw Illuvium as potentially being the next Riot Games, being the next World of Warcraft, being the next Fortnite. And you might be like, oh, he's just saying the names of big games. And having studied all of those games and their business models for the past 10 years, there's this magic formula where a breakout player in gaming gets to enter the space and blow the hell up. And that magic formula is this. Existing gaming genre is here, but the games in that genre are not that great. New gaming company takes all those ideas that already exist and makes them AAA. Then they layer on top of that the new trending gaming business model. So League of Legends did that. MOBAs already existed, they made a AAA MOBA, and then they layered new business model, free to play. Boom! Biggest esport ever. World of Warcraft. Well, EverQuest already existed. Cool, we'll just make a AAA version of that. Subscription model on top. Boom! Biggest MMORPG of all time. Fortnite. Well, Battle Royales already existed with PUBG. Well, let's do a AAA version of that, and then let's put the Battle Pass system on top. Boom, biggest battle royale of all time. Now enter Illuvium. Okay, well, auto battlers already exist and open world games already exist. Well, let's do a AAA version of that. And then let's layer this new NFT and crypto, this tokenomics model on top of that. Boom, I think it could be one of those scenarios where you have the magic formula and you've got the moat around your game where you are literally multiple years, plural years, ahead of anyone that is even considering making a AAA game in your space. I just had to, I dropped everything with my personal business, with media companies, with all these lucrative contracts. I dropped it all and I said, I'm going to go all in on Illuvium.
That's a really interesting story. And with that, like, because when you're looking at it, we are incredibly early, but like the thing that I've had a chat with Kieran about this before, and I'm curious to get your take. It's like, I feel like people still view Illuvium as a game, and it's more of a studio than a game. It's just you get laser focused on one thing, because in the crypto space, there's a lot of other protocols, projects, whatever you want to call them, that are building like multiple games at a time. And then you just see the narrative of this is a studio, you know, they're going to blow up because they're a studio. And for me, Illuvium is doing a studio in what I would consider the better way, which is laser focus all in on one. And once that's up and running and good, you move on to the next. You don't build 15 different games at the same time when they're not going to achieve that. Is that sort of how you view Illuvium as well, or you got a different take?
It's Illuvium, like, so in the internal conversations within Illuvium, like, and I meet with Aaron and Kieran and the guy like a couple times a week, and we talk strategy and marketing. And the way that I understand Illuvium is today we need to make sure we deliver on this sort of inaugural first, what insert word to mean the first product you launch.
Yep.
It needs to be AAA. It needs to be polished, and we need to have a successful launch and have a successful product in the market. That is pretty important. Yep. And so, yes, the primary focus of Illuvium DAO right now is delivering upon that. However, yes, we've already talked internally about what the next games are.
Yep.
So we are a studio who is going to be launching games, plural. But I don't want to talk about that too much, because people will be like, well, hold on, you know, weren't you supposed to launch this back in blah, blah, blah
December,
date?
yeah.
So why are you talking about these other games?
Yeah.
And they might start thinking, well, is that why this one's delayed? Is because you're developing all these other games? And so I don't want to talk about that, because I don't want people to think that we've lost focus.
Oh, 100%.
But as it stands right now, we are plural games already. With Illuvium Zero, the mobile game and companion game you can play on desktop, that's its own game. We've got an internal demo we can play right now where we go play that on desktop, and we're playing that game right now. Then there's an entirely different game, which is connected with Auto Battler. And you saw the recent live gameplay stream where Grant and Kieran were like sweating effing oceans. It was so tense, man. It was too tense. By the way, that whole wager thing was not planned at all. The stream was supposed to be just them playing the game and us talking strategy and doing an educational stream, and instead it became a sweaty $1 million bet stream. But anyway, we've got that Auto Battler that all of us can play as an internal demo. 2 separate games, plural. But if you really break it down, the overworld experience for Illuvium is almost its own game, really.
100%.
But it's also connected, of course, in essential ways. For you to be able to, you need the Illuvium Zero companion game to get fuel. Then with the fuel, you can then go in the overworld and explore and collect. Then in the overworld, you can then go in the Auto Battler.
Yeah.
And then loop, 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 loop. So for me, it's kind of like 3 games almost, the way that I'm thinking about it right now, that are all connected together through essential systems. So the reason why I'm sharing that is this is sort of a sneak preview, if you will, of the way that the Illuvium franchise, future games, future modes and expansions, if you will, can be implemented. Whenever Aaron talks about this and whenever we talk about it internally, any game or property or whatever that we're going to be building in the future, needs to be integrated on a fundamental level to what already exists.
Yep.
So for example, with land, the fuel that comes out of land will be used in every future Illuvium game.
Yep.
And so land doesn't just exist for the main game right now. It exists for all games in the future. And so this shows you that as we expand the Illuvium universe, you could insert buzzwords here, ecosystem, franchise, whatever words you want to use. Metaverse. Let's chop it up with our own metaverse. I hate when anybody says they're building their own metaverse. Anyway, the point of sharing that is they're all going to be fundamentally tied together on like a mechanical and fundamental level, a financial level, like an economy level, and then on a lore level, and then also on hopefully a user experience level and in some way.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm sharing that is very different than legacy gaming. That's another fundamental way that that Illuvium is unique. Other gaming studios, let's take CD Projekt Red, for example. They make The Witcher 1, The Witcher 2, The Witcher 3, and those games have no interoperability of any description. They're just entirely separate games, and the only thread running through the games is the intellectual property and the lore.
Yep.
Whereas with Illuvium, the threads running through the games is not only the intellectual property and the lore, but also the economy runs through all the games. And then interoperability and functionality runs through the games. And then literally assets that you can be acquiring, such as Illuvatars, will run through all the games. So the connectedness of the franchise in future titles, because of blockchain technology, is game-changing.
100%.
I guess, pun intended, I guess. And so that's how I'm thinking about it based on the internal conversations and the way I'm seeing this franchise expand. And so are we a studio? Yes. But it's a studio that's going to be doing things differently than what you're used to seeing in like a traditional gaming studio like CD Projekt Red. Like I don't see us doing the traditional sequel model where Illuvium 2 comes out and somehow makes Illuvium 1 obsolete or something. Like that's not at all the path that we're currently going down.
100%. And on top of that, like you did the example of where, the lore continues, but everything else is disconnected. There's also the other side of studios where they just build completely different games that are just completely different lore and they're just standalone. And that's for me, obviously, I just want the first game out. I want to play it. That's what everyone wants. But I also look forward in the future because I know how like obsessed Aaron is with lore and stuff like that, to see no matter what the next game implementation is, how they actually integrate lore into whatever style of game that is, because I know he is incredibly obsessed with that sort of stuff. So that's something else that I just like get excited for way down the road. But yeah, definitely let's get the first game out. Indeed.
Dude, he's got some weird and unexpected game ideas too. He throws around in these meetings. I'm like, really? That? And he's like, oh yeah, because it's going to be integrated like this. I'm like, oh shit, that's kind of crazy and interesting.
Yeah.
So he's not thinking the obvious ones. Just to let you guys know.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, he's definitely very next level on thought from my conversations as well. The next thing I wanted to jump into is the adoption of play to earn. Now, everyone always talks about we're in year 0. I think I heard Kieran say the other day that we're in year -2. Obviously, you're on the marketing side, so this is like basically your job. What's your view on play to earn adoption? How early are we, and where do you see the adoption coming from for Illuvium?
Yes, so we are very early. Like I like using analogies and going back to the last tech boom, last social media tech boom.
Yep.
So just to give everybody perspective, right? So for me, and you were a part of this as a YouTuber, in the mobile gaming space.
Yep.
So I think we're today in the crypto gaming, GameFi, play and earn space. Insert whatever term lands. I like play and earn.
Yeah.
We're at Farmville right now.
Yeah.
So if you guys aren't familiar with Farmville, it was like basically the first like social multiplayer game that was exclusively on Facebook. You build a farm, you harvest resources there, and it went viral, especially with women. That Farmville game ended up basically being like kind of the genesis point, if you will, for mobile games.
Yep.
And it took about 3 or 4 years for more Facebook games to be created. Then Apple decided to get on it with App Store and get mobile games on their App Store. Then Google Play decided to get in on it and get mobile games in Google Play Store. And that Farmville game of the multiplayer, online, free-to-play social game, that was the genesis point. And that was in like the late 2000s. It took years before that genesis point became a major mobile game like a Clash of Clans or Candy Crush or these other titles that became like billion-dollar titles.
Yep.
And the reason why I'm sharing that example is because once you see that like genesis point, the major gaming players and the investors and the money that is required to take that idea and then take it mass market, they will notice the genesis point maybe a year or two too late. And then once they decide to deploy money into that idea, it takes about 3 to 5 years for them to get a product to market. And so right now, the major gaming players, a lot of them haven't even noticed the genesis point yet. So we're that early. So some of them, like Ubisoft, have hired a VP of like crypto and NFTs. Some other players like Microsoft have talked about metaverse and they're just starting to notice, but others haven't announced anything and haven't made any moves.
Yep.
So when Kieran says we're at year -2, I think that that's pretty accurate in that the entire gaming industry hasn't even realized we're at the genesis point of the next wave of gaming.
Yep.
Once they all realize in about maybe 2 years from now, then they'll be dumping hundreds of millions of dollars on that crypto NFT idea and developing games. And then 3 to 5 years later, they'll have games going to market. So what does that mean? That means that Illuvium is like 2 years early on the gaming industry even waking up to this. And we will already have fully developed and deployed and marketed AAA games in the market before these players can even think about entering. So that's how early we are in my view.
Yeah, it's a really interesting take the way you look at it from that genesis point of view, and it also makes you realize like when you talk about deploying all those funds and then 3 to 5 years. I know like we all want Illuvium today, but like the speed at which the game has been created, like relative to every other sort of game production is really fast, especially considering it started with an idea like 15, 16 months ago. So that I just wanted to like narrow in on that because like we're always impatient wanting it now. Obviously, the time frames, our predictions aren't the greatest in Illuvium. We haven't got the greatest track record, but it is still going bloody fast compared to like what other stuff actually produces at. Did I cut you off? Was there something else you wanted to mention at the end there?
One thing came to mind, which is I know it's frustrating. You want to know when, and you want it now. So we do not want to pull a Cyberpunk 2077 here. We do not want to pull an Anthem here. Yeah. We have all seen those stories. We've all followed those stories. And what's so sad about those gaming stories is you see what the developers are trying to make. You see the masterful marketing. Like, look at Cyberpunk 2077. Like, you see the masterful art. You see the masterful gameplay possibilities. You see the masterful marketing with that game. Probably the best games marketing ever. And probably some of the best art ever for a game. But the development, they didn't give the team enough time to develop and fully realize the concept. And so with Cyberpunk 2077 as an example, even if your IP and your marketing is maybe some of the best ever, if you don't give the development team time to fully realize the systems, the features, the functionality, and squash the bugs and do optimization, then it doesn't matter if you have the other two pieces in their God tier. Your title is going to suffer. You're going to pull a Cyberpunk 2077.
Yep.
And so when you look at Illuvium and you look at our IP and our aesthetic, I think it hands down blows away everything that has even thought about being in this space right now. Check. Marketing, I'm ramping up the marketing team, and we are going to, I think, deliver some of the best, if not the best marketing in this space when we take our products to market. Check. What we can't do is, just because we have the other two pieces, we can't think that the development piece isn't important and try to push that to go too fast. And I know that's frustrating, but that is the heart of everything. And it doesn't matter how awesome the art is, it doesn't matter how awesome the marketing is. I can market the crap out of this, but if the development piece, if this is not a fully baked pizza, we're going to fail.
I love you.
Just straight up.
Your analogies.
And so
they're fantastic.
we've got to make sure that development team has enough time that when this thing drops, you go, oh shit, this is what I hoped Illuvium would be all along.
Yeah.
And that's that. And so that's the way I view it. And I think that unanimously, that's the way the team views it internally.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll add here is people want to know when. So just had an update on this last night. I pitched our project manager on it, who works on like 3 different products. His name's Nick, internally. And I want all of you guys to see our internal, not some made up timeline graphic that's like in Q1, we'll do blah, blah, blah. But you're going to see like the actual embed of our Jira project management system on our website. And you're going to see upcoming quarters and upcoming periods of time. And when our internal deadlines on when we think those things are going to drop.
Yep.
And so if we think that they're going to move, they're just literally going to move in this publicly available resource, and you're going to see that we pushed it out further.
So like a real-time updated timeline.
Yeah, it's going to be like literally be the timeline that I'm looking at with my eyeballs. You don't have to wait to ask some co-founder in an interview or ask me in an interview to find out when. It'll just be there. And I'm toying around with illuvium.io/when, WEN for that one. And then that way I've got a great answer. You want to know when? Just go to illuvium.io/when. That's not up yet. Just an idea. But anyway, we're developing that, and we're looking at embedding that so all of you guys can look at it. And I think the reason why I like this idea is it doubles down on what makes Illuvium good, I think, from a marketing perspective, which is we don't withhold anything. We leak thousands of assets and secrets and stuff about our titles. We'll show our gameplay early when it's a work in progress and it's got bugs. We're just showing you what we got.
Yep.
And that's that. And it's full transparency, and we're just going to give it to you. And so I think showing you the literal timeline that we're working off of is just going to double down on that transparency. And I think that's another way that that Illuvium is unique and different versus legacy gaming, where they do these very carefully, very well thought out strategic, when we're going to say the date on our launch and all of these very careful timelines. We're taking a complete opposite approach, which is here's everything we've made. Here's what it currently looks like. Here's what our current timeline is. Complete honesty. And I feel like it's the best approach given how early we are and how fast we're moving.
Yeah, and I've got a double click into that on what you're talking about with both those topics of like the date and stuff like that. Because coming from mobile games, now you're at a stage in mobile gaming where there's 10 new titles every week. And so like what I've noticed in that space is like it's a big ramp up. They get the advertising and then they say, this is the date. Everyone gets hyped. And then you jump into the game. But what's happening lately that for like the last year and a half in mobile gaming that I've seen, because I cover a lot of stuff, is they're rushing things out. And this touches on your point about not rushing it. And the things are like half baked. They're missing end game content, solid gameplay loop. And people play it for a week, really hyped. And then they get to an end point and there's nothing left to do. So then they drop it and it just falls off a cliff. And I think in this space, it's a little bit different because there isn't as much competition for people to jump over to. However, you still have the entire competition of other platforms, whether it be mobile gaming, console gaming, PC gaming, and I know for myself, because in this space, I like playing some of the little games that come along that I don't actually make content for, just because I'm curious on the space, and I jump into a bunch of them, and it's a really watered down experience. and the economy just goes straight to zero. And that's something completely on a different topic that Illuvium's just, I think, got sorted over any other project that I've seen. And you get to a point, you're like, okay, so the experience isn't as good as these mobile games. The earning capacity is now down to like $1 a day. Why would I bother playing this anymore? So I definitely think that approach of get it right on the first time is definitely the way to go. And if you're going to get it right anyway and you're transparent, then you don't have that big hype moment into nothingness. It's just a constant flow, and then you'll get continual adoption and stuff like that. So I definitely agree with that approach. And I just wanted to touch on this as well, which is with adoption in the play to earn space. It's an interesting one, and I just wanted to get your take on it. It's because crypto hasn't yet been accepted globally by any stretch of the imagination.
It's like what, 3% of humans on Earth have crypto, something like that. I've heard numbers between 3 to 5%, something like that.
Yep. And so, like, the thing for me with mobile gaming, as an example, is like the platforms existed, like phones were accepted, all that sort of stuff, and then we layered games on top. It feels like we're trying to get games out before the actual platform is accepted. And so, like, how do you see that playing out? Do you see games being the onboarding of people into crypto and sort of flipping that equation? Or do you see it as being we have to wait for crypto to be accepted before we really start to take off with gaming?
I mean, it's a fun question to ponder. It's both simultaneously, to be honest. So it's kind of like... sorry, I'm going to use another analogy.
Yes.
But it's kind of like people that say, do you need to write down and build good habits before you become successful? Well, if you write down, if you work out and you eat right and you sleep and you wake up in the morning and give yourself daily affirmations about how you're going to be successful, then you'll be successful. And then other people say, no, well, actually, you have to be successful first. Then you'll have enough money and time to be able to go work out and be able to afford good food and assistance and things like that, to have the good lifestyle, to actually do all the things you're talking about. So the answer is somewhere in the middle here with this space. Crypto adoption is hockey sticking right now, and that's just going to continue to go up. There's no question about it. And so Illuvium doesn't have any control over that, really. Check. We're in the right place at the right time. Those fundamentals are in place, and we're seeing the number of wallets across all protocols, all major blue chip layer ones going up into infinity, essentially. Especially if you zoom out.
Yeah.
And if you look at, and Raoul Powell is one of my favorites talking about macro here, the rate of adoption with crypto is double that of the internet. And so it's going to move twice as fast. So let's assume this is going to move twice as fast as mobile gaming did. Okay? So just by the numbers, right?
Yep.
It's moving twice as fast as mobile phone adoption. So what does that mean in terms of timeline? So if we are in Genesis Point right now, Farmville, and then in mobile gaming, about 5 to 6 years later, you had major AAA mobile games dropping on App Store and Google Play and getting huge, like Clash of Clans and Candy Crush. If the rate of adoption is twice as fast this time as it was for mobile gaming, which it literally is by the numbers, about 2 to 3 years from now, crypto games you're like seeing it mainstreaming.
Yeah.
So if I were to predict, I'd say 2024, 2025, that's the point at which you're going to see the biggest part of the gaming conversation with influencers and YouTubers and streamers and gaming media in about 2024 will be them bitching and complaining and moaning about how I'm so tired of hearing about NFT games. I'm so tired of hearing about crypto games. Just give me a regular video game. Slurpity-burbity-burp. That's going to be about 2024. And so once you get to the point where the legacy gaming establishment is complaining about how you're taking over, you're mainstreaming right then. So I think 2024 is going to be that time. And we saw the exact same thing with mobile gaming when it was coming up in the early 2010s. Once it started mainstreaming in about 2014, 2015, and the numbers in mobile gaming started eclipsing the market share of PC gaming and of console gaming as a portion of that gaming pie.
Yep.
Then you saw all the gaming media, IGN, GameSpot, YouTubers, streamers bitching about mobile games aren't real games. These are ruining the gaming industry. And guess what those same people did? 3 or 4 years later, they were late on making mobile gaming YouTube channels, dumping their legacy gaming YouTube channel and stream, and then now they're doing Clash of Clans, and they're doing, Call of Duty Mobile, and they're doing all of these new games, all of these mobile games, because mobile games ended up taking over the industry.
Yeah.
So the point of sharing this fun story is people are like, do you need crypto adoption first, or do you need XYZ second? And the answer is, the simple answer is about 2 to 3 years from now, this space will be mainstream, and it's happening twice as fast as mobile gaming. So get ready. And initially, it's going to be deployed on the normal gaming platforms, PC, console, mobile. But if I were a betting man, I'd bet that we're going to see a new platform emerge as a part of this revolution. And people are looking at AR, they're looking at VR, looking at these things. Nobody knows exactly what it is yet, but we need that hardware breakthrough that enables that. And so if I were to guess, that hardware breakthrough will be created by Facebook.
Yep.
Facebook Meta is investing billions into developing hardware with 19,000 full-time employees just working on Oculus. And so something is going to come out of that shop, if I were to predict, this decade, and that's going to open up the next hardware component of what we're going to see here in crypto gaming, just like mobile games did, and with the advent of the mobile phone.
Yep.
And so that's going to propel this whole industry forward in a whole new way. But what that hardware revolution is, we don't know.
Yep.
So long story short, mainstream in 2 to 3 years, and then hardware revolution and it being almost unrecognizable toward the end of the decade, once you see maybe Oculus 28 or whatever drop, and whatever that tech is, changing everything. And whatever that tech is that drops toward the end of the decade and is like the final polished version of that tech will be so much more engaging. The experiences in that tech will be so much more compelling than you playing inside of your stupid rectangle on your phone or on your TV or whatever, that it's going to completely disrupt legacy hardware. And that's the point at which things like Illuvium, if it is one of the leading IPs, will be one of the default apps, if you will, installed in such devices.
Yep.
Like your Netflix is installed by default in your TV today because they were the leading player in the online video revolution. I see things like Illuvium being in the default app in this new hardware revolution. So just to give you my macro view, that's the way I see things playing out.
Yep.
We are at Farmville. 2 to 3 years, we're going to be at like Clash of Clans mobile gaming. Toward the end of the decade, we're going to be just straight up mainstream, and legacy gaming will be completely disrupted.
Yeah. And you touched on Facebook or Meta there. I'm curious on your take, because for me, that's a very interesting topic of conversation, because I'm in both circles. Like most people in crypto are also in the real world as well. And for me, like when I go to the
hope so.
when I go to the real world, it's like people are like, oh, this is just a marketing ploy. This meta thing, it doesn't mean anything. And then you come into crypto and everyone's like, get Facebook out of here. We don't want their centralized stuff in our space. My personal view on it is, I like it because it's that hardware factor that you're talking about. I just think the money and time that they're going to put into development will speed up the process a lot faster. I don't think they're going to own the metaverse and run the metaverse, but I just like the fact that there's hardware getting produced which can take everything along that much faster. I was just interested on your take on the meta side of things.
Yeah, so I understand. And as every day passes, I too are becoming more, let's say, in love with the idea of decentralization and how healthy that can be for the world
Yep.
on every level, from supply chain issues we're seeing right now to finance systems to ownership of property, your identity, all of it. I feel you guys. But let's get back to reality. Do you think that a piece of premium, affordable hardware that makes, let's say, a Ready Player One type of experience possible can be created in a decentralized way and manufactured in a decentralized way? Certainly not within this decade or the next decade. Maybe in some future where we have decentralized robotics factories with that run on AI in some kind of wild fantasy science scenario, we could have decentralized hardware manufacturing where little DAOs here and there can come up with a concept and they can manufacture affordable, great hardware. But in today's reality, that function, the hardware function, has to be centralized. You have to have a centralized group of engineers that are funded by a centralized investors, that are tested and have global distribution in a centralized delivery and supply chain network. It just has to be centralized today. And so I understand that you have the dream that you want everything to be decentralized, but hardware cannot be. Your RTX 3090 you just bought for your computer, there's no DAO and there's no decentralized entity that could make that hardware. I'm so sorry. They just can't. Same thing with the mobile phone you have, your iPhone and what have you. You can't make that affordable in a decentralized way. Otherwise, it would be like making a Lamborghini. You'd have to make each phone by hand, and the cost would go up 25x. You'd have to make each metaverse hardware, let's call it, whatever that's going to be, by hand, and it would be 100x more expensive per unit. So, long story short, I think the future of metaverse and this space is a marriage of CeFi and DeFi coming together. And if you look at what Zuckerberg says in his statements, you cannot trust him. You can think he's a lizard person. That's fine. But at the end of the day, what he said is he already recognizes that the decentralized elements and the decentralized control of the software, of the IP, of the games is necessary. The finance, the ownership is necessary. And he's already stated his view of his position with Facebook is they're just trying to make the hardware, and let's call it the gateway or the portal for everybody to come into these decentralized experiences. He wants that to be meta. So he basically wants to be like, he didn't get to do this. He didn't get to do this in the mobile phone revolution. He missed out on it. Facebook did great, but he didn't get to be iPhone. So what Apple did, they have the hardware and they have the app store. And then now they're a toll booth for all the software that goes through there. Facebook only got to be the software. So this time around, Zuck is saying, I'm gonna be the one that has the hardware and I have the app store. And then you, DAOs, decentralized organizations, Illuvium, Star Atlases, you plug your DeFi into my network and I'll toll booth that bad boy for you. And I'll have the best hardware and I'll have the best portal for people to interact with to get into your ecosystems. I'll make my cut. You get the users. Everybody wins. I think that's what plays out. And there's going to be an entirely decentralized version of this, of course. But I think the ones that marry CeFi or centralized, I'm calling Facebook CeFi in this example because they will be a centralized finance hub in this scenario. Yep. The ones that marry CeFi with DeFi are the ones that are going to reach billions, not millions.
Yep.
And personally, as the marketing guy, I do want to reach billions.
Yep. So you'll have the iPhone with what they're trying to achieve, and then you'll have the Android with the customization and the APK files and all that sort of stuff will be an option. It's just the easy adoption for the masses will be the one that does have that centralized component because it's just more natural to people to not have to do the additional legwork and stuff like that. Sick.
Yeah. Centralized entities make it so that you can quickly do transactions, you can lower latency, you can get cheaper hardware, You can meet up with all of your friends easily. You can do log. I'm sorry, like I understand centralization sucks in many ways, privacy and all of these things and being shut down and canceled, but it also provides massive practical conveniences in today's world. And so it's not either or, it's both.
Yep, 100%. And the final thing that I wanted to jump to, because we've been going a while, I just wanted to touch on it. I know you've mentioned it before on streams and stuff like that, but I just wanted to go into the marketing strategy of Illuvium in the early days, because like we had that conversation, like I know early days, Kieran was talking, year zero, we're going to get mass adoption from traditional gamers. It sort of shifted to like, shit, we're actually way earlier. So, so it's like, I just wanted to get your view, because it's really interesting to me as well. Like I said, in the mobile industry, it's like all heavy marketing, and then you launch, and then it's just a downhill slope on adoption from there. Whereas it is going to flip with this, because you've still got adoption of people into the space coming in. So like, what's your sort of flow for marketing in that sense once Illuvium is ready to drop?
Yeah. So yeah, that was a big realization. But I think it's an accurate one. And so I think the best entrepreneurs and the best marketers are the ones that listen to the data and listen to the truth and are willing to reevaluate their thesis on their product and the product market fit based on reality. And entrepreneurs and marketers that fail are ones that assume their original thesis is correct, and then it ends up not being correct because the market changed or factors didn't work out in your favor. And so I really appreciate that about Kieran's change of take, let's say, on how quickly things are adopting, because you just got to look at reality. And the reality is, having tens of millions and hundreds of millions of players be able to join something like Illuvium this year, probably not possible. The numbers just aren't there. Maybe in the timelines I discussed earlier, maybe in 2 to 3 years from now, tens of millions. Yeah. Hundreds of millions in a 3 to 5 year timeline. Okay. Yep. But we need that adoption curve to keep hockey sticking. And we're too early. It's still hockey sticking, but we're like way down here. The hockey stick's going to be way up here, guys. It's going to be like out of frame, but we're down here. And so recognizing that reality makes sense. So what do you do when you're toward the bottom of the adoption curve and it's starting to go up? What you do is you scale it brick by brick is the easiest way to talk about this. So you don't make any assumptions about what's going to work from a marketing standpoint at any point. And you're always in a massive experimentation mode, testing different platforms, testing different influencers, testing different languages and markets, and testing different content. And you're constantly gathering data on what's working, what the sentiment is on all of those levels. And then my overarching marketing philosophy is you double down on the winners and you kill the losers with fire. So if you're doing a strategy like AMAs like this, and that's really working and that's bringing in users and generating interest, you double down on that. But when you double down on something, a marketing strategy that works, you have to kill another marketing strategy with fire that isn't working. And so that's what we're doing internally, and that's the way I'm running the marketing operation right now. We're currently in the middle of onboarding multiple new talent onto the marketing team to run different various functions of marketing. And what I'm doing today is I'm putting the foundational, let's say, starter set of marketing people in place. The community manager, the digital marketing manager, the growth manager, the communications manager, the video manager, the influencer manager, and putting these people in place to run all of the different aspects of marketing in place now. We're putting our processes and our infrastructure in place to be able to scale up. And then what we're doing right now is we're just running a variety of different content, campaigns, strategies, measuring the results, killing the losers with fire, and doubling down on the winners. And the reason why we're doing that, and the reason why I'm not telling you some very sure, tried and true marketing strategy right now, is because the space is evolving so quickly and things are changing so fast. And we're starting to see emerging platforms that were never a part of the traditional 2010s marketing strategy, Telegram, and Discord are two examples that is changing the way that you need to approach marketing today. And so that's the way I'm looking at this. So as we move up toward launch, and we need to have all of the basic bricks in place for the foundation of marketing. And we need to know what the next steps are for all of the aspects of marketing to scale up and have those ready to rock when it's time to hit the red button on these different areas and take a rocket ship to the moon in these different areas.
Yep.
And so that's what I'm working on today. Building the foundation is about 65% of my time right now. And then about 20% of my time is exploring agencies, vendors, exploring ways to expand marketing and scale up massively for the future. That is the only way to approach the space right now, and making any assumption that the traditional gaming marketing playbook is going to work in 2022 is a failing strategy. And so if you think the traditional hype launch cycle, we're going to release the trailer and run $1 million in ads on that, and then we're going to get you onto that landing page to get you to pre-reg for your goodies, and everything's going to be great, that's a failing marketing strategy. And so what I'm doing is I'm thinking about how can we build content, initiatives, community events, live streams, Twitter spaces, ads, AMAs that we're doing every single week, week over week, with constant content. How can we build marketing in Illuvium focusing on content primarily? And how can we make that content be released on a regular clip? And how can we scale that up? That's what I'm doing as we move toward the launch of Illuvium. And then once we get there, we will adjust based on what the market is telling us. That's the honest to God answer.
Yep.
And anybody in this space that tells you what the best marketing strategy is today, the only thing that's guaranteed is they are wrong.
It's definitely a very interesting one when you talk about it, because like I'm seeing from some of the bigger companies from mobile gaming start making play to earn, whatever you want to call it, games. And I'm watching them, and I'm really curious to watch it all play out, because I'm watching them do traditional mobile gaming marketing, and I just don't see it as being the same effect like you're saying. So I'm definitely curious to watch this all play out and see how it evolves. And it sort of feels like you're like at the moment trying to be the person who creates the model that then everyone will eventually follow, because you're like, you're discovering that, you know, like the pre-reg, you're going to get your rewards at 300,000 pre-registrations. Everyone gets something in game. Then you run your Facebook ads, your YouTube pre-roll ads, and you're creating that model that everyone will go, but you've got to be fluid with it to actually find out what works. So it's a very interesting topic for me that I actually thoroughly enjoy watching, just to see how different players in the space are going about it. But I definitely think from what I've seen is that the transparency and putting stuff out there seems to be getting the best responses. That's without any analytical data, just based on the projects that I'm watching that are growing. And it seems to be a lot more organic growth that happens in the space at the moment, at least. Once you get more adoption, obviously, you know, you're going to have to push harder for it. But definitely interested to see how that plays out. But is there anything else you want to say? I've had you here for about an hour now, so I'll let you go. But anything else you wanted to add at the end?
We said a lot of things about a lot of things today. What I would tell everybody is hold on to your butts. This space, you know, if you're moving into a bear market and you're like, oh, is it all over? One of my favorite crypto YouTubers, Dan Teaches Crypto, or Digital Asset News. He's like, if you don't like the price of something today in crypto, or you don't like how things are going in crypto today, just wait a couple days and it'll be the complete opposite. And that's what's so wild about this space. So I'd say hold on to your butts. And, you know, if you really believe if you believe in where decentralization is going, if you believe in where Illuvium is going, if you believe in where this space is going, what I'm doing, and you saw this whole conversation, I'm trying to keep a 2, 3, 5-year timeline in mind with all the moves I'm making today. And I would encourage the community to do the same. There's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of FUD. There's a lot of sentiment swings. It's like, you know, you have like everybody needs a therapist after looking at your trading view every day. Just try to take a longer view on the space. And that's where I think you can find the truth.
Yeah. And if you're having trouble taking that longer view, just get in Discord and just say game win, and then you're pretty much sorted from there.
Perfect.
Once again, dude, I really appreciate you coming on. Once again, guys, Andrew's doing some fantastic work. I like the whole behind the scenes stuff of Illuvium. I can't understate it and I overstate it enough. It's absolutely fantastic. So once again, dude, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.